This map shows the international borders as they stood on September 1st, 1939. That day marked the beginning of World War II, a military conflict that would become the largest and deadliest in human history, lasting until September 2nd, 1945. Over those 6 years, the conflict pulled in more than 60 countries. By the time the fighting stopped, between 70 and 85 million people were dead. The world fractured into two massive military coalitions. The Axis powers, driven by Germany, Italy, and Japan, faced off against the Allied powers, led by the United Kingdom, the Soviet Union, the United States, and China. What began as a series of isolated regional expansions quickly compounded. The fighting synchronized across continents, creating a total global war that physically destroyed existing empires and forged the geopolitical framework of the modern era. The mechanical failure of the global system began decades earlier, at the end of World War I. The 1919 Treaty of Versailles imposed staggering financial reparations, strict military limits, and massive territorial losses on a defeated Germany. The resulting economic devastation and political instability created a power vacuum. Across the globe, authoritarian leaders exploited these crises to seize control. In Germany, Adolf Hitler systematically dismantled the Republic and established absolute rule. In Italy, Benito Mussolini consolidated fascist control over the state. And in Japan, Hideki Tojo led a highly militaristic government focused on imperial expansion. This map tracks the initial wave of Axis territorial aggression. In 1931, Japan pushed into Manchuria. By 1935, Italy conquered Ethiopia. Concurrently, Hitler rebuilt the German military. His forces occupied the Rhineland, annexed Austria, and absorbed the Sudetenland. European leaders repeatedly granted these territorial concessions in a strategy of appeasement. They calculated that yielding ground would satisfy the dictators. Instead, it systematically removed the remaining checks on their power, guaranteeing a broader war. On September 1st, 1939, German forces broke the Polish border barrier. They executed a combined arms doctrine known as Blitzkrieg, or Lightning War, integrating tanks, aircraft, and mechanized infantry into a high-speed offensive. This triggered an immediate diplomatic cascade. Britain and France declared war on Germany on September 3rd. 2 weeks later, the Soviet Union invaded eastern Poland under the secret terms of the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Poland collapsed within weeks. This tactical map illustrates the speed of the subsequent German sweep. In 1940, high-speed vectors track their rapid capture of Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. By May 1940, German forces turned toward France. It took only 6 weeks to force a French surrender and trap massive numbers of British and French troops against the sea, triggering the desperate Dunkirk evacuation. To invade Britain, Germany first required absolute air superiority. The German Luftwaffe launched massive, sustained bombing campaigns over British cities. However, the British Royal Air Force successfully repelled the attacks. This 1940 engagement, known as the Battle of Britain, marked Germany's first major strategic defeat. Forwarded in the west, Hitler pivoted east. On June 22, 1941, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa. Directed at the Soviet Union, it remains the largest military invasion in history. Initially devastating, the offensive hit 3 critical failure points: plummeting winter temperatures, fierce Soviet resistance, and impossibly long logistical supply lines. Blitzkrieg tactics were engineered for rapid, localized conquests. When stretched across the massive geographic depth of the Soviet Union, the German war machine began to mechanically fail. Parallel to the military campaigns, the Nazi regime executed one of the darkest chapters in human history. The state apparatus systematically murdered approximately 6 million Jewish people. They also targeted and killed millions of other victims, including Roma, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and Soviet prisoners of war. The regime designed major camps strictly for extermination, utilizing the immense industrial scale of facilities like Auschwitz-Birkenau and Treblinka. This industrialized, methodical genocide represented a total collapse of human rights. After the war, addressing these atrocities became the primary driver for creating modern international justice frameworks. On December 7, 1941, the conflict synchronized into a truly global war. Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, killing more than 2,400 Americans. The following day, the United States declared war on Japan. In response, Germany and Italy declared war on the United States. By 1942, Axis momentum finally peaked and the strategic calculus shifted. The first turning point occurred in the Pacific. In June 1942, the U.S. Navy intercepted and defeated the Japanese fleet at the Battle of Midway. Japan lost 4 aircraft carriers, permanently crippling its offensive naval capacity. Simultaneously, in North Africa, British forces decisively defeated German armored divisions at the Battle of El Alamein. On the Eastern Front, the urban ruin of Stalingrad hosted one of history's bloodiest engagements. In February 1943, Germany's 6th Army surrendered at Stalingrad. The Soviet Union seized the momentum, forcing the German military into a long, brutal retreat. Between 1943 and 1944, the Allies advanced globally. They invaded Sicily, resulting in Mussolini's overthrow and Italy officially changing sides to join the Allies. From the air, Allied strategic bombing campaigns systematically leveled German cities and obliterated their industrial production centers. On June 6, 1944, the Allies launched D-Day. Over 150,000 troops landed on the beaches of Normandy, France. Opening this Western Front, paired with the relentless Soviet advance from the east, trapped Germany. The resulting two-front war mathematically overwhelmed Axis logistical capacity, guaranteeing the collapse of their defenses. This map tracks the final geographic squeeze of 1945. Allied forces pushed rapidly from the west, while the massive Soviet army advanced from the east. In April 1945, Soviet troops entered Berlin. Facing total defeat, Adolf Hitler committed suicide on April 30th. Germany formally surrendered on May 8, 1945, a date now recognized as Victory in Europe Day. In the Pacific theater, the fighting continued. The United States executed a brutal island-hopping campaign, seizing key Pacific territories to move bombers within striking distance of the Japanese mainland. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The resulting detonations instantly vaporized urban centers and tens of thousands of civilians. Simultaneously, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan, launching a massive invasion into Japanese-held territories in Asia. Faced with total annihilation and a two-front invasion, Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945, officially ending the conflict. Atomic weapons forced a strict new logic onto global conflict. Total war between superpowers now carried the explicit mathematical threat of human extinction. The human cost of the war was immense. Between 70 and 85 million people died, leaving vast, ruined landscapes across Europe and Asia. The sheer scale of this destruction necessitated a completely new governance system. In 1945, the United Nations was established to mediate disputes and prevent future wars. This map visualizes the immediate post-war reality. The wartime alliance between the United States and the Soviet Union dissolved, splitting the globe into competing ideological blocs and initiating the Cold War. The physical manifestation of this divide was the splitting of Germany itself, creating distinct East and West nations along the new Iron Curtain. Furthermore, the total war economy stripped the capacity of European nations to hold their colonial empires. This sparked massive independence movements, dissolving imperial borders across Africa and Asia. World War II was a violently destructive crucible. It burned away the pre-1939 imperial system and directly forged the borders, treaties, and institutions of the international order we live in today.